stuff still in store for you. I will go ahead and introduce our next guest coming to the stage. So we are going to be hearing from Irina Singh. She's a business information security partner at Medtronic. Irina is going to be talking about security as a business enabler. Irina, thanks for being here.
Yes, of course. Glad to be here.
Yes, good stuff. And I believe you're going to be sharing some.
Correct.
All right.
Yes. Let me know if you can see.
I can.
All right. Wonderful. So we're going to pivot from technical controls to security as a business enabler. So Stephen, before me, said, we know that vulnerabilities will be present. However, how do we determine what we focus on and what actually needs to be addressed and when? So how does security enable the business? Of course, we like to give the concept of business being able to go faster with belts, right? If we have safety belts on in the car can go faster. The same thing goes for the business. The business will be able to accomplish far more if they're given appropriate security controls, if they're able to protect the data that's necessary, and they're able to do it in the right way. All right, so in the vulnerability management, that was the first topic of the day. Vulnerability management is critically important, and in a lot of large organizations that I have been part of, the vulnerability scanning tools are great. They go out there, they look at everything, they ping everything, they scan, and they give you some results. However, without business context, those results are really not actionable. We need to know who owns the systems. We need to know what is on the systems and what importance those systems have to the business. As an example, is it a patient-facing system or a physician-facing system, like in the case of Medtronic, that has PHI and that cares for patients, or is it an internal test system? Right, we would always want to make sure and bring that context. So me in my business information security role, I'm really passionate about really connecting security efforts to business. For me, I got the opportunity to build out the BISO program within Medtronic. And so really that was the part that was invaluable to my vulnerability experts. They're really good at helping us address the issues. However, finding out who the system owners are, right? In most of the large companies, system ownership is decentralized. It's not always going to be managed by corporate IT. So finding who the owners are, finding out what is on those systems, and making sure that you categorize them and you prioritize them with the business to make sure they understand the risk. All right, well, my graphic is a little skewed, but let's talk about compliance. So obviously compliance is a big topic for the business, and we want to make sure that compliance efforts are always aligned to business functions. We want to make sure that governance, risk, and compliance committees exist in order to make sure that the full alignment exists. We want to make sure that the workforce is trained and that we monitor that compliance. So as previous presenters have mentioned, there's HIPAA, there's GDPR, there's a slew of other requirements that every business has to comply with depending on the data that they handle. And really performing security assessments and doing that loop on compliance is really what is important here. So how do we accomplish that? We accomplish that through a set of relationships. And that's, again, something that my team definitely focuses on. So we have really strong relationships with our governance, risk, and compliance organization. We make sure that we facilitate their activities. So they perform the assessments. However, we facilitate the assessments, and we make sure that we gather correct scope, and we make sure that all of the systems that have critical data are included. Then obviously legal privacy. Our quality organization is interested. Business leaders will always be interested in the outcome of the compliance assessments, and of course the workforce. All right, so now let's talk about business risk. Business risk is critically important because it is imperative for the business leaders to understand the risk that they may be accepting on the behalf of the business. We always say that security does not control, approve, or deny what the business gets to do. security gets to enable the business to do security. They get to advise. So when we have a business implementing a solution that is critical to their success, there's, a handful of risks that exist. As long as that business leader is educated on the risks and the leader's level is high enough in order to be able to accept those risks on behalf of the business, that is always a way forward. So we want to make sure that security never stops the business from doing what it's supposed to do, making money, right? So understanding the business needs, staying close to business strategy, making sure that we know which initiatives are really part of the strategy and which ones are not as important. And obviously, education, education, education. Establishing those relationships and really being a trusted partner is what is really, really important. And then obviously mitigating and remediating the risk. So that's where we have to, again, put business risk in context, help the business prioritize it, and help the business figure out a plan how to mitigate it, remediate it, put some compensating controls in, what have you. So all of that is part of our business risk management. And of course, again, we rely on relationships, and you'll see a theme here. In the business information security field, relationships are the most important. We have to be a trusted advisor to our business leaders. We have to be a trusted advisor to our security organization. And Derek, I see you're making a comment about business impact analysis, and that's exactly correct. We need to understand how something is going to impact the business. We need to have that documented. Risk assessments are always need to be performed, documented, and it needs to be a repeatable process. So again, strong relationships within GRC, making sure that they trust you to bring the critical systems to them, and then of course partnering with the business to understand what those systems are. All right, so in the end, as I said, business after all is nothing more than a bunch of human relationships. So in my time at Medtronic, I have gotten the privilege to get to know, I started out with our cardiovascular business, and I've gotten to expand my team and my reach across all the businesses that we have and learn the wonderful things that Medtronic is doing and really understand what is critical for the business. There are also IT leaders that we partner with. So each organization has a business relationship manager, a BRM. It is their job to be the CIO of the business that they're responsible for. And it is my job to partner with each one of those individual CIOs on their strategic efforts to make sure that we know what needs to be addressed first. In coming into an organization that does not have a BISO function, what I'm finding is that people who sit in corporate security generally receive requests via tickets. And one ticket ends up looking like another ticket is just a constant flow of work. It's not clear to the security experts what they need to focus on. The perfect example that I give is a crypto expert would want to secure everything. They would want to encrypt all the data, no matter where it is, basically so that it's secure, right? And the cost of encrypting everything may not be worth it for the business, right? If we have critically important data, if we have intellectual property, which of course Medtronic has a lot of, if we have patient information, that definitely needs to be encrypted. If we have less important information, internal use information, even public information, right? Marketing materials, where the business is not going to invest money to encrypt those. So that's really how you bring that into reality. So BISO and advocacy programs. So the BISO is something that I saw starting around 5 years ago. I'm in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and we have a lot of large corporations here. And I was reaching out to, Target, 3M, Cargill, General Mills. Those are all the companies that are located here to benchmark with their cybersecurity organizations to see if they have a BISO function. And I can tell you at that time, there were just, there was really two companies that had a BISO function in its infancy, and they were still trying to figure out the best approach, the best alignment to the business. So BISO functions are invaluable to our CISO. The CISO appreciates that we bring as we say, our motto is we bring security to the business and business to security. Additionally, we have some advocacy programs. So what you want to have is security champions within the rest of your organization that will understand what needs to be done. And this can be, as simple as phishing training, right? You can train advocates on even how to secure their home networks, right? How to protect their kids, anything to kind of get people who are not generally in security to focus on security. And so those advocates then will go out and they will actually make sure that the processes of enterprise security are followed. Without that, really what you find is if your processes are too difficult or too difficult to understand and need to be demystified a lot, then you will always find the business taking the path of least resistance, because they still need to accomplish their work. So they will move forward. All right, and of course, return on investment. So again, we look at a variety of things like risk management, certifications. So certifications is something that is a business decision, as somebody mentioned in one of the previous presentations. Whether you get a SOC 2 or whether you get ISO certified or whether you're high trust certified may depend on whether the business wants to accomplish it for marketing their product or for contractual obligations. As we know in the United States, high trust is something that is written into the contracts with large hospital organizations that are part of high trust, right? So certifications become important for those businesses if they have signed up and promised to do so, if they've promised to be certified. I have a number of people on my team that lead those efforts that are specific to a particular product. And of course, in the end, we want to help our businesses automate. We want to have standards and operating procedures and business continuity. All right, I do see a question and I want to make sure that I don't miss it. Mary, how do you bring an objective perspective to implement appropriate checks and balances between business requirements and what and how much needs to be secured? That's a great question. So that is where that partnership with the business is really, really important. We need to be there from the very beginning. We need to make sure that we understand the business strategy. And it's really, in the simplest terms, you need to understand how the business makes money and what will enable the business to continue to make money. And so that is what takes first priority, right? So it is a risk-based analysis. That is all we do, that's all we perform, and that's all we educate on. What is the risk appetite of your organization? What is the risk appetite of a particular leader? We have some leaders that are willing to kind of live on the edge. We allow them to do that as long as the only risk that they're accepting is on behalf of their organization. If the risk goes to a higher level and puts the entire organization at risk, that's where the risk acceptance and education needs to be done at a much higher level. All right. Yep, and Stacy, I see you're saying, yep, the leaders do struggle with the math behind the risk appetite. And that is definitely something that there are centralized risk organizations, but not in every organization is cybersecurity part of the general risk organization. So it's definitely a learning curve, even for the business leaders, to figure out kind of where they want to be. I can tell you that once I put vendor risks, vulnerability risks, those types of items in business terms, more times than not, the business leader will not accept the risk, especially if the risk is critical and high. And you're talking to a VP or a high enough person. Once they understand what is at risk, they don't want to put their name next to it. They don't want to put their organization at risk. So there have been very few, if none, times that we've had leaders accept that on behalf of the business. All right, so I know I've taken a few questions already. We have some great discussions going. Derek, so you're mentioning the risk matrix. Definitely, that's something that needs to be developed within the organization. All right, let's see. Factors need to be considered both external and internal in terms of risk. That is correct. That is part of the business lacks the technical understanding of risk, and like I mentioned, the people with the most technical expertise lack business context. We have wonderful technical experts in all of our organizations, right? We have vulnerability experts, third-party risk experts, and so on and so forth. Crypto experts. They most of the time they're good at what they do because they hyper focus on what they do. They become experts in their field, and they can tell you exactly what needs to be done with their eyes closed. They in most of the times, however, they cannot bring that into business focus. They cannot they can't understand it without the help of somebody that's really connected to the business strategy. All right, for those that aren't in the fold on the business side, what tips do you have for those more technical people to better understand and communicate with the business? Great, great question, Stacy. What I would recommend is, again, some of that for the cybersecurity people. What you really need to do is form those partnerships. Attend as I mean, show interest is of course item number one. Attend as many business town halls as you can. I mean, that's where the business leaders go over their priorities. That's where the business leaders tell you exactly what is important to them. But it's really focusing in the end, it's in all of our interests to make sure that our company continues to make money. So that is the one thing that we need to remember, right? That's how we all get paid. So how do we enable for the company to continue to do that and to do that securely? All right. Any other questions that we have? All right, and I see there's a LinkedIn user that mentioned that communicating the risk to the senior management in a way that they understand is the key. Yep. And so that's exactly what I have been focusing on. And it is a skill. It is an acquired skill because the more you interact with senior leaders and with business leaders, the more you understand what language they speak and how to express the right level of detail to the business without losing them, honestly. If you go too much into detail on technical details, you will unfortunately lose their attention. All right. And Stacy, I'm not sure, the question says, do you have analogies usually work well for that? So I'm not sure for what, but okay. Do we have any tips on the specifics of language? Yes. So definitely, Mary. The language that I use in communicating with, I am, in the end, I'm an interpreter. So the language that I use is I try to flip any technical language, any acronyms into the simplest terms I can. So I always say my lovely husband, who you can see in the picture over here, could not probably turn on a computer to save his life. He runs his own business. He runs a restaurant. He's never needed a computer. If I can explain it to him, I can explain it to my business leaders. That's honestly how I practice. If I can explain to him what vulnerability management means and how the tools work and how I need to bring that into context, so it's really, honestly, practice on your parents, practice on your least technical family members. If they can understand the concepts, then you can really explain it to the business leaders, right? In the end, how is this going to prevent you from making money? How is this going to put organization at risk? Whether it's you're going to be in the news, there's going to be regulatory fines that happen, et cetera, et cetera. Yes. So that is the best way that I found how to make them care. I mean, I hate to say it, but they are really money focused. They are really focused on how to push that business forward. So however you can put it in financial terms, that's what I've had the best luck with. All right. Let's see. Anything else? All right. Well, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Definitely willing to have the conversations with organizations that don't have a BSO function. So we're here if you need us. Oh, and Stephen, you're on mute.
Yes, I am.
There we go. Had to happen at least once.
Had to happen at least once. I've started, I tell you what, I've started so many live streams and go like 3-4 minutes in, and then someone's like, hey, I can't hear a word you're saying. Thank you so very much. Appreciate you joining us. How can we stay in contact with you?
Yes, so I'm available on LinkedIn. Of course, my Twitter is listed over here, and really I'm really easy to get a hold of. I participate in the HISAC, so if anybody is going to come out and see us there, I'll be presenting there as well. So yeah, I'm part of the ISACA organization. I'm actually the president of the local chapter here in Minneapolis, so you can find me a lot of places.
Love it. Thank you so much. Appreciate
All
you.
right. Thank you for the opportunity.